There's a reason that your Heavenly Father wants you here. So don't look, if you need something, don't ask me.
Ask
You
the one
better
that
ask.
brought you here.
I was just a vehicle. You better ask the one that wanted you here because I didn't. He was like, Mom, I think I'm going to need therapy around this. I was like, okay, I'll pay for it.
Oh my gosh. And that was, that's the crippling part sometimes about loss early,
Mm-hmm.
loss when you are young, loss when the
Yes.
loved ones are young, and then having children, you know,
Yes.
after something like that. That
Yes.
is a serious fear that
Absolutely.
people have. And I would
Absolutely.
say me too, that was one of those really, really bad fears. I mean, those
Yeah.
panic attacks, those thoughts that just come that are just,
Absolutely.
and don't not answer the phone,
Right.
or what have you, because it's just all these things.
Too
And
much.
yeah, and people really don't think about that. And I think too,
Yeah.
as you were talking, your son was probably your saving grace in that time as well too, because he was
Mm-hmm.
so close to your nephew, and
Yeah.
because it was like she's going to need somebody, right,
Mm-hmm.
in that space and in that time and in that genre, that area,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is going to need to be her cushion. Now, even though
Yep.
you
And he
had
was.
your husband
Yeah.
and things of that nature, that was your saving grace.
Definitely. Yeah. It was. That was a tough time. I think back on it now. It's like, wow. Like it just devastating, because it's like, wow, like it just such young people, so much potential, so much
Yeah.
opportunity that just never happened. Yeah.
And
So
then it makes you aware of all the possibilities, right?
mm,
So how they say, God is no respecter of persons, right? So it doesn't
that's right.
matter if you're a baby, it doesn't matter if you're old, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a teacher, it
Right.
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
That this is life, and this is what happens, right?
It is.
But when
Yeah.
the crippling part also with that fear is because there's so many possibilities out there that
Mhm.
you don't have control over. You really
No.
find out early, I don't have control over this,
Right.
right?
Right. I don't. I
That's
don't.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we have talked about brother, we have talked about nephew.
Nephew. Yes.
Now let's, because your grief and loss didn't just stop there.
No. No. So I'll summarize a couple and then I'll go into some deeper stories. So, like I said, I'm the youngest of seven and I have one remaining sibling.
Okay,
And so all four of my brothers have passed away.
okay,
My oldest brother passed in 94. My second brother, my nephew that violated me, his dad, he passed in 2019.
okay.
And my third brother, the streetwise
Mm-hmm.
guy, he passed in, I'll say the date because that has relevance. He passed November the 18th of 2008.
Okay,
And then, of course, my youngest brother, my Mark, he passed in June of 1985. So
okay,
all four of my brothers, I have four brother angels. And so they're all looking out for me.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then my one nephew, that we've spoken of enough. I've given him enough of this time. And then my other nephew who was murdered. Actually, that's the same. Those two brothers have the same dad.
Yeah.
And then I have another nephew who was murdered as well. That's my sister's son.
Okay,
And then, of course, my nephew Mark. So I have four nephews that have passed away,
okay,
four brothers, four nephews. Um, and then my sister, should I do my sister? Do my dad. My dad passed away
okay.
in 2004, August of 2004. And that was challenging too,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And I remember I had this strange way of waking my husband up in the middle of the night to talk about very useless things.
Okay.
So I would wake him up in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, do you realize that 3 plus 8 is 11? How do you get to like just dumb stuff?" I would
Yeah.
just wake him up, and he'd be like, "Girl, if you don't turn over," I remember one night I woke him up and I was just like, I really can't sleep. And he's like, okay, what's going on? Do you need to talk through something? I'm like, I don't know. I just keep thinking about my parents and I know they're aging and I know this and that. And I was like, but I got to reconcile something. And he's like, okay, well, what do you need to reconcile? And I was just like, hear me when I say, like, just listen to me. He's like, okay. And I said, I love my daddy. I'm a daddy's girl. He's like, yeah, you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, but I don't want either one of my parents to go anywhere. I don't. I love them both and I need them both in my life. However, if God in his infinite wisdom, when it's time for one of them to depart this life, I need it to be my dad.
Wow.
And my husband looked at me like, what are you saying? I was like, I'm not saying I want my dad to die. Hear me. That's what I said. You need to hear me.
Yeah.
Hear my heart. I'm not saying that I want my dad to die. It's just that when the time is coming, when one of them has to go, I want it to be my daddy first. And he was like, well, why would you say that? And I said, okay, life on earth with my mom without my dad is a much easier task than life on earth with my dad without my mom.
Okay.
Because my dad, like, loved, I had a model of someone almost to like a sickening kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like he loved my mother. He
Yeah.
cared for her. Like, it's like, okay, dude, that's enough. Like,
Yeah.
go sit down. Like, like she never had to want for anything. And it was almost sickening to most of us.
Yeah.
But to the rest of the world, it was like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And it's amazing how you can have something that is beautiful and not really appreciate it,
Definitely.
And so, yeah. So I remember my husband looked at me. He was just like, you need to go back to sleep. So it was tough. My dad, him passing in August of 2004.
Mm-hmm.
It was very tough, for my mom. They had been married for 56 years and or 58 years, my bad math. And it was challenging, for us. My mom had to like just adjust, because she spent her whole life, with this person. And so that was an adjustment for us. But, God got us through that. And then fast forwarding into 2021,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should do my mom next. I probably should do my mom next.
Yeah.
Yeah, before I do my husband. Yeah. So in 2008, I indicated that my brother, the streetwise guy, he passed away November 18th of 2008. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that was, surprising to us. He had gone to Las Vegas and my brother was a dialysis patient and he had gotten sick and he got this bacterial infection that spread through his body and, it ended up taking his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember helping my mom and, my brother's children trying to navigate through that. Mm-hmm. And then it was coming up on my 39th birthday in 2009. Mm-hmm. And so to understand, turning 39 was very significant because you got to remember, I had older parents. Right. And I felt like they weren't going to live to see me to be an adult. But then I also felt badly because I was born in 1970 and in my sophomoric childhood mind, the world was going to end in 1999. Yeah. Like, how are we say year 2000? Like that. So I felt like I would never live to see 30, and I just felt like, why should I really do a lot with my life? Because 29 is going to be over if I even live that long.
Right.
And my mom was just like, girl, don't say that. Like, live the best life that you had, whatever. And I'm like, no, whatever. So I remember when I turned 30, I was pregnant with my bridge son, or I don't say middle. I was pregnant with my bridge son and I got a totally different lease on life. Like, I'm here. Hey, what am I going to do with it? Right. And so I remember telling my mom, I'm like, okay, we got to plan this next decade because, baby, when I turn 40, we going to light it up. And I was telling my mom, I said, we're going to do this and we're going to take a trip and we're going to do it. And she's like, oh, my goodness. And I was like, yeah, Mom. I said, when I turn 40, we're going to go big, right? And so she was like, okay, plan it out. She said, the Lord willing, we'll do it, whatever. And so to understand, when I was 8, my mother, she would always make a big deal of my birthday in January. because right after my birthday, my mom would go on a 40-day fast, water only. So she would do a big celebration for my birthday, make me something good and good dessert and all that. And she didn't want to take away from my birthday. But then right after that, she would start her fast. And that's how she entered in every year. And so I remember 1978, I'm 8 years old. We've celebrated my birthday. And she sits me down, and she said that she was going to be going into the hospital after my birthday, that she wasn't going to be doing her fast. I was like, Mommy, you always do your fast. And she's like, well, I'm not going to be doing my fast this year because I'm going to be going into the hospital. And she explained to me that she had to get one of her kidneys removed because there was cancer in her kidney. And she was like, but I should only be in the hospital for 2 weeks or so, blah, blah. And she was very good about explaining everything. I'm like, okay, all right, good, good, good. Well, my mother went into the hospital the day after my birthday, and she didn't come out until Good Friday that April.
Okay.
Because there were so many complications. When they took her kidney out, they had to get the bowels out first and then go and get the kidney. And when they took the bowels out, they put them on the side. And by the time they went to put them back in, it was like a ball of yarn, and they were, twisted and all. So she had a bowel obstruction. So they had to do another surgery to cut the bowels. Now, this is 1978. We don't have the same medical technology back then. And she's at a military hospital, so they're doing stuff that's experimental, and they're like, man, we don't know. And it was crazy. So my mom, she prayed, and she was like, God, once she realized how complicated it was, because she literally was in the ICU for like 6 weeks on breathing machine, all kinds of stuff. But her whole prayer was, God, let me live to see these last 2 children become adults. That's all I ask. Let me live to see them to be adults. Well, certainly she lived to see my brother become an adult, short-lived in that regard, but she still saw it. And so now I'm 8, and she's just like, no, I got to live for my baby girl. And so me turning 30, it was a big thing. I was like, Mom, I'm here. You're here. Like, it was just like, look at what God has done. Like, it was just like a wonderful celebration. So I'm gearing up now for my 40th birthday. And so I remember January 1st of 2009, my husband and I used to always have like this big party on New Year's Eve and have people come over to our house after church, and it would literally go all day. And people would stay for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and it just whatever. Yeah, it was a huge party at the house. And so my mom, she would come over. She had one of the bedrooms in my house, and it was so cute because if she was upstairs in her bedroom and the door was open, that meant that come on up. She was, entertaining. If the door was shut, don't you go up there. Don't you bother her. Right. So she's at my house, for New Year. She was downstairs for the party and doing everything. And so I took her home back to her house like a couple days, like maybe the 3rd or 4th of the year. And, she's like, all right, we're good. Now she's like, what are we going to do for your birthday? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this is 39. This is the last one before the big turn up. We planned it and all this. And she's like, I don't know. She's like, we'll figure it out. I was like, okay. And so then she didn't feel well. But instead of her saying something to me, she told my one sister. And so my sister took her to the hospital, and they started running, some tests and everything. Now, mind you, prior to that, this is 2009, prior to that, in 2005, I was pregnant with my 3rd son, and my mom wasn't feeling well. I took her to the hospital or to the doctor. They ran some tests, and they basically said to her that where that kidney had been removed, there was slow growing cancer. And there was still a cancerous mass there.
Got it.
And they told my mother in 2005 that cancer was stage 4. They told her that she had 3 months to live. And they told her to get all of her affairs together and all of that kind of stuff. And she was just like, okay, I hear what y'all are saying, but she's having her 3rd child. And I took care of all her kids. Like, my mother had a resolve. I don't necessarily ascribe to astrology and all that, but my mom was a Taurus. Whatever all that means, she had that bulldog, that tenacity, right? And so it's just like, I'm gonna get all my affairs together. She's like, but I'm not going anywhere. And sure enough, we did everything for my mother. We wrote her obituary. We did the program. We did everything, put it on a flash drive and put it away. And so sure enough, when my son was born in 2005, she loved on him. She cared for him. He never went to daycare until he was like nearly 4
Mm-hmm.
because she was like, I'm going to care for him. And I'm like, but mom, you're not supposed to lift. You're not. She said, I'm going to work through it. God's going to give me the strength, to care for this little boy. So now fast forward to 2009, she didn't feel well again. And so she didn't want to say anything to me. So she had my sister take her to the doctor, and they ended up admitting her through the ER into the hospital, and come find out the one kidney that she had left was no longer functioning. And so they're like, ma'am, you didn't want to do, like you've survived beyond, you didn't want to do any chemo, you didn't want to do any radiation
Yeah.
or any of that stuff. You don't want to do dialysis. We have no choice but to put you on hospice. Like there's at this point, because you can't live without a functioning kidney, right? And so we came to terms with the fact that my mom would be transitioning.
Mm.
And that was difficult.
Yeah.
To say. I mean, my mom, that was my girl. Like that was my heart. And I'm just like, but God, I was thankful and grateful because God gave me far more with her than, what I probably should have had in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things.
I mean, 31 years more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was kind of like, oh, wow. I'm like, okay. So needless to say, once we got that diagnosis and everything, I called my job. I was like, I don't know when I'll be back. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to spend every waking moment with my mother. I didn't want to leave her side. And so I did not. I refused to leave her side, except for the time since she sent me on excursions to get little things for her, which was hysterical. Some of the things that she asked for. But in any case, yeah, that was funny. But what I tell people, when my mom got discharged from the hospital, it was January the 9th because she was in the hospital for a few days. And my birthday was that next Friday. That 1 week from January 9th to January the 16th, I will forever say that that was the best week of my life.
Yeah.
Because the level of intentionality and purposefulness within that week is unrivaled.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, that's the level of intentionality and purposefulness that we should be living with, because we never know when the moment will be. But because I knew my time was limited, I knew my time was limited.
Yeah.
I took advantage of every single moment. Like, I don't need to sleep, mom. I just want to look at you. Like, I wanted to spend every possible moment with her. And I believe my mom wanted to spend every possible moment with me, so much so that she waited until my birthday. And all week she'd be like, what day is it, Pumpkin? And I would tell her, and be like, oh, okay. And what's the date again? And and she waited until my birthday that Friday. And she sent me away to go get my hair done. Because I had a hair appointment. It was my birthday. I was going to get my hair done. And I was like, I don't need my hair done, girl. I'm going to be in here with you. You don't care what my hair looks like. She's like, yes, I do. You need to look decent. I want you to go get your hair done. I want you to go get it nice and curly. You look really nice with your hair curly, and pull it back. It looks nice when your hair is pulled back. I was like, Mom, I don't need all that. She's like, no, go get your hair done. And so I remember calling my stylist, and I was like, listen, I need every chair. I don't need to be sitting waiting to be shampooed or waiting to be this. I will pay for every chair so that I can get in and get out and do what I need to do. And they were like, Paula, just come on. We got you. So I remember that Friday when it turned midnight, my mom was like, what day is it, Paula? And I was just like, oh, today's Friday. She was like, wait, Friday? I was like, yeah. She's like, well, what date? I was like, it's the 16th. She's like, okay. And I could see her brain like kind of turning. Yeah. And so then a couple minutes later, she's like, come on over here. And I was like, what? She took off her oxygen mask. And my mom, if you gave her $1 million and told her to sing a note on tune, she would lose, because she just had no singing ability whatsoever. She was definitely, part of the joyful.
The reason why she was looking at you sideways when you went up to the church to go sing. She's like, oh, Lord, please don't let her have my Jesus.
Right. And so she takes her oxygen mask off, and she goes and gives me this like beautiful speech, and she talks about life and, how God has come to give us life and life more abundantly. And she's telling me about being intentional about life. And she's just telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, Mom, why are you saying all this? Like, okay, I know all it,
Give
and
me
she's
one little tidbit in there that she said to you about being intentional, if that you remember.
Yeah. So she said, make sure that you live your life with purpose, and make sure that you have reasons and you have a why. She was very, like just don't do things haphazardly.
Yeah.
Have a why. Make sure that you have a why. God has come to give us life and that more abundantly, but the abundance is rooted in knowing something.
Yeah.
And so make sure that you're just not out here doing willy-nilly and just making things up. Make sure that there's a reason, that there's a why, and that you work through that why. And you understand what it is, that you honor it, and you allow it to honor you. Like she was, that she's real. And I'm like, okay, Mom, And so she had her oxygen mask off and she sang happy birthday to me. It was a beautiful thing. And we kind of went to sleep, and then we woke up again and went to sleep. It was just like a wonderful little thing. So it's time for me to go and get my hair done. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be back by 12:30 at the latest. I'm like, she's like, okay. She's like, take your time. I'm like, no, I'm going to be back by 12:30. I already arranged everything. I'm going to run, do what I got to do. And even the other little errands I got to do, my husband will do them for me later. But I'll be back no later than 12:30. She's like, 12:30, no problem. So I left, went to go get my hair done. Two of my sisters were there. And they said, my god sister, I call her my sister. So when I say two of my sisters were there. And they tell me that after I left, Mommy didn't say anything else. She never opened her mouth to anyone else. All she did, you could hear her sort of like praying, yes, Lord, or yes, God, or saying her little prayers, or speaking in, her little heavenly language and different things, and lifting her hands, and, and they would be like, Mom, where are you going? What you doing? She just completely zoned all of them out. And so my sister at one point, she realized, she's like, Mommy's getting ready to transition. And so she said they just knelt by her bedside and just sang and worshiped and, just had a beautiful moment. And it wasn't like, my sister, when she explains it to me, she's like, it was just so peaceful. It wasn't like some heave or some labored breathing or anything difficult. It's like she just was saying, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. And then she would say it like a little slower, in her language, and eventually she wasn't saying, thank you, Lord, or yes, Lord anymore. And she was gone. And so I remember calling my sister, calling back to the house on the way home. And, I'm like, hey, I'm on my way. If y'all need something, I can't get it. I got to get home. I told Mommy I would be home, whatever. I was like, what's she doing? They're like, oh, she's not doing anything. She was gone. I was like, okay. I was like, she's not. And they're like, no, she's just laying there. She's good. She's not doing,
Oh, so they didn't tell you yet.
They didn't tell me yet because I was driving. They didn't want to tell me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll be there. I'll be there. And I remember I walked in the house. It wasn't quite 12:15. It might have been like 12:13, 12:14, something like that. And she was gone. Yeah. And she had just passed, because I was only maybe about 5 or 10 minutes away, from the house. And I was just letting them know I'm on my way, whatever. And she sent me away. So when I go and get my hair, it's not curly today. I probably should have curled it today in her honor. But like whenever I get my hair curled, I think about her. I pull it back off my face and I'm like, all right, Mom, you looking?
Right? Do you approve?
Yeah. You approve? Is this good? Did I do good? But she didn't want me to see that. And sometimes I feel cheated in some regard, but the memories that I have of that week, I didn't need to see her transition, because quite honestly, that became a beautiful gift for my sisters. And that became, their memory, and it was something that they had that wasn't mine. Right. There's always that, who's the favorite, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And so I can appreciate the fact that they have something that's uniquely theirs as it relates to Mom's passing. But I'm not going to deny how bittersweet it is for my mother to die on my birthday. It's like, it's wow. But I look at it as an eternal connection for the two of us. And I try to live out what my mom said, have a why, have a reason. And so to honor my mother, I decided on my 50th birthday, I guess I needed a whole decade to get myself together. I decided on my 50th birthday to start a blog and to start writing again, because that was part of my healing after what I
Yeah.
went through. And I always wrote, I always, did that. And so I decided to start writing again. And so I started a blog called PH Balance. And that blog is rooted in the fruit of the spirit. My mother loved the fruit of the spirit, love, joy, peace, gentleness, long suffering. Like those were her virtues in life. And she emulated them and lived them out. And so I decided to start this blog, and every entry at some point is rooted in one of those virtues. And
Hmm.
so I started it. And then I decided, in addition to doing it a couple years later, I decided to release it because I was doing it kind of like haphazardly. And I
Yeah.
was like, Mommy said always have a why, have a And
Yeah.
so I'm like, let me put some structure around it. And so now I release the blog on the first of every month.
Okay.
And then on the 16th of every month, I do a video blog or a vlog.
Okay.
And I will then go on my YouTube channel and talk about the blog, and share my behind the reasons and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I do that on the first of the month, release the blog. On the
Mhm.
16th of the month, I do the blog, and the blog is at 8:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in military time, that's 2009.
Got
So
it.
I am memorializing 1/16/2009 through
Yeah.
the blog, honoring my mother. So every month I feel that I get to wink at her and honor her, with the blog.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And it's she gave you life on January 16th, and
Yeah.
she sang you happy birthday on the last.
Yeah.
And so
You
the,
did.
the the time that she gave you life, she took her last breath, but it's still that moment of finalization, right?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
this big thing with bows, right? She tied it in a pretty bow for you, and
She
that's
did.
that was the. It's almost like you said, bittersweet, but that was the best gift that she could have given you at that time.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And I believe that, and everybody has different beliefs and all, but I believe that God sends me my mom at times that I need, because especially when my husband died, whoo, God, I needed my mama.
Yeah,
And, like that sense of, her presence and her peace. And, I just feel like he sends me her. And it is amazing because that first year when I turned 40, I remember on my birthday, I cried. Oh God, I cried so much. I cried the first 15 years. My birthday, every year I cried. When
yeah,
I turned when my grief was, I guess it was be 16,
okay,
I didn't cry. That was
yeah,
the first. No, it was probably, yeah, that probably be the first year I didn't cry. Like, oh
yeah,
wow, I'm not crying, I'm maturing or whatever. But I just remember that very first year when I turned 40. Turning 40 is a lot in and of itself. But then dealing with all those memories and everything, I cried so much. But I remember that morning in my quiet time and through the tears, it was like God gave me what I consider a word for my year. Like he
mhm,
gave me, like, this is what 2010 means for you, Paula.
yeah,
And it was beautiful. And I would always go back to that word, like, in March, in July, in November. Like
right,
it grounded me for that year. And I was just so grateful and thankful. And then that became every January 16th since then.
yeah,
I get this word for my year. And it's almost like, God winking my mom back
yeah,
to me in some way, because it gives me my why. It establishes what I'm going to do in that year.
yeah,
And it's just like, wow, like that is like, it's mind blowing. Like when I look back on it and, I look in my journals and I'm like, oh yeah, that was oh, okay. And that's
ooh,
why it's that level of intentionality, that
mhm,
level of purposefulness. Like things are not random, even though they may seem in the moment that they're random, they're not. All things are working together for our good in some kind of way. And it might not look good right now. It might not feel good right now, but rest and believe it is working together for our good. So
I love
yeah,
this.
so I look
As
forward
you
to.
were talking about that, I'm like taking that in, like she's speaking to me.
Yes, yes,
I must have needed that, you know?
yeah,
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Now,
yeah.
we would like to say, oh, that was it. And
Tuh. Wouldn't that be nice?
right? That was it. And we got through that and we're getting through that. But no,
No,
ultimately, you had
ultimately,
another loss
yes.
that floored you.
Yep, floored me. So to understand my husband was a U.S. postal worker. He worked for the Postal Service our entire marriage for 34 years. He worked for the U.S. Postal Service. And my husband was a very hard worker. Like
Yeah,
anybody that knew my husband would be like, oh, yeah, Martin worked hard. And so we were really looking forward to him retiring at the end of 2021.
yeah,
We were very excited about it. And so he's like, babe, I'm going to do it. I'm like, yes, I want you to do it. And I had already started making him like these honey-do lists of things to do to care for himself, because my husband was probably the most selfless person I've ever known. He sacrificed everything for me, for my children, even for our friends and family.
yeah.
He was extremely selfless. And so I really looked forward to him being able to take care of himself and to do some things for himself and to be selfish a
Hmm.
little bit, and be able to rest and be able to have a time where he could just not be on all cylinders and be able to, so we were stoking,
Yeah.
for his retirement. And so I remember it was October the 30th. Before I even get to that, it was our 30th wedding anniversary,
Hmm.
2021 in August. And we're still kind of COVID and limited a little bit. And so my husband knew I loved the beach. So he took me down to Virginia Beach. That was an easy trip, to be able to go. And so it was wonderful. We had a great time. And as we're coming back, we're sitting in the car and we're over this one bridge down in Maryland that is a long bridge. And as we're riding over that bridge, 3 times, whenever I'm around water, and maybe that's why I love the beach and all that, because I don't like to get in the water. I just like
Yeah.
to look at the water.
Okay.
And so whenever I look at the water, I always feel like I hear something from God. I always feel like he speaks to me, or something resonates with me as I'm looking at water. And so as we're crossing this bridge, my husband's driving, I'm looking out the window, and 3 times coming over that bridge, I heard God say, Paula, I'm going to use your grief stories to help people.
Mm.
And so the first time he said it, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I'm like, huh, okay.
Like
And
that's
then the
enough.
third time, I'm like, okay, you're going to use my grief stories to help others. All right, I got it, right? And so when I came home that night, I have this little journal book that I call my own little hall of faith.
Yeah.
And I will write in that book when God tells me something that I really believe is pertinent, that I really need to keep track of.
Yeah.
I track the promises. So I write the date, what he said, and then when it comes to pass and how it comes to pass.
Mm.
And it helps me to grow my faith and like, oh, girl, you just made that up. No, I really heard something because, yeah,
Right.
And so it helps me. So I put it in, I did my little journal entry and closed my journal and went on about my business.
Hmm.
About 3 weeks later, my husband's oldest sister, I'm sorry, my husband's oldest brother's wife, so the sister-in-law matriarch of our
Yeah.
family, the Hollis family, she passed away.
Okay.
And I was asked to sing over her as she was transitioning, to sing
Oh,
her favorite song.
okay.
And I ended up singing at, her funeral service. And so I had never done that before. I had never sung over anyone,
Yeah.
as they were transitioning. So I was like, okay. So that it raised up in my mind, like, okay, there's a grief story. Like I've never done that before. So I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay. Yeah, all right, cool. So then fast forward to October 30th, my husband and I, we love music. We love gospel music. And so we decided, I was singing with Maverick City Choir in their concert in Philadelphia. And so my husband and I were at the concert, and in this very freak accident, my husband, walking up a ramp, he ruptured his Achilles. We thought he had just simply twisted his ankle,
Yeah.
but he ruptured his Achilles. So we're in the emergency room, in North Philly on mischief night. It was some hysterical stuff happening up in that ER.
Yeah.
And so, we're laughing and, trying to make light of it, just thinking he had sprained his ankle, but
Yeah.
he couldn't put pressure on it, whatever. And so when we followed back up with the orthopedic doctor, that's when they said, no, you've ruptured your Achilles, and it doesn't really make sense, given your age and, it doesn't make sense to really do surgery. We're just going to let this heal naturally, but it's going to take it a good, 12 weeks or so,
Yeah.
for it to heal. And so you're out of work. Like, they're like, you're not gonna be able to go back to work until the new year. He's like, well, I'm retiring at the end of the year. They're like, okay, well, you're retired now. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going back to work. And so I'm like, oh, wow. And so now my husband, he can't really walk. I'm trying to care for him and trying to get him situated and everything. And so I'm like, all right. So I'm just going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite ready for him to be home.
Okay.
I thought I had until January to
Like,
get my.
You can go to work a little bit. You can go sit at the desk, right?
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I wasn't quite ready. So it's just like every time I look, he's right there.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite ready for that, but okay, we do what we got to do. And so I remember on November the 8th, my husband was, at that point, he was getting to be maybe a little bit more mobile using a scooter and, because he could hardly walk. And so November the 8th, my niece called me and she was like, Auntie P, they found my mom and she was unresponsive. So this is my oldest sister.
Okay.
And they were like, they found my mom. She was unresponsive. They rushed her to the emergency room. We have no idea how long she was there, whatever. And so I told my husband, I said, babe, I'm going over to the hospital. He's like, all right, here I come. I was like, bro, you going to slow me down? He's like, I'm coming with you. You're not going over there. But I'm like, okay. So we got him all situated, crutches and the different things and the scooter and got him to the hospital. And so because they didn't know how long my sister had been, laying there, and they weren't really sure of her neurological status, like literally it took a 10-day cycle for them to, determine what was what. And I was at the hospital every day and my husband was right there with me. And so needless to say, on November the 18th of 2021, the same day, November the 18th, 2008, that my brother passed away, my oldest sister, Linda, passed away.
Okay.
And my sister Linda had 6 daughters, and one of my nephews that had been murdered was her only son. And so I'm doing everything I can, to try to help the 6 daughters and get them situated. And my husband's like, babe, we got to help the girls. And this, I'm like, okay, we'll do, whatever. So I'm like, I'm dealing with all that, working through all that. It's COVID. The next week is Thanksgiving. And so I'm like, all right, normally I don't make Thanksgiving dinner. Normally we go to Hollisville to my, nephew's house, and we have this whole big spread with all the Hollises coming together. But because it's COVID now, everybody's, in their own places. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make a small little Thanksgiving dinner. My kids are like, well, we don't want no turkey. We just want some ham and, some chicken. And I'm like, okay, but that's good. I can handle that.
Yeah.
And so, it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving. And I'm starting to get things ready, starting to clean my greens and get all my stuff organized and whatever. My husband had made a little breakfast that morning. And he was like, I really want breakfast. And I was like, well, I'll fix you breakfast. He was like, no offense, I want to cook it myself. I'm like, okay, fine. So got him situated with his little, scooter. And he was sitting at the stove doing the cooking and everything. The general rule in Hollisville is you cook, you clean up. But we gave my husband a pass that day. Like, we'll clean up the kitchen. You just go sit down. So I'm in the kitchen. I'm trying to get dinner and stuff ready. He's yelling out from the family room, what we having for dinner, babe? What we having for Thanksgiving? So I'm telling him, and I didn't say turkey. Well, to know my husband, he was a very traditional type of man. And he's like, babe, you didn't say turkey. I'm like, I know. He's like, well, how are we going to have Thanksgiving dinner and we don't have turkey? I said, we don't have to have turkey. We're going to have ham. I'm even going to make a little roast beef and we're going to have some chicken, whatever. We don't need turkey. He's like, yes, we do. It's Thanksgiving. We need turkey. And I'm like, the kids don't want it. You're probably the only one that wants it. And he's like, well, that's fine. Then I want a turkey. And he's like, go to the market and get a turkey. I was like, where am I going to get a turkey the day before? It's going to be frozen. Like, what are you talking? He's like, babe, go. Like, I'm gonna pray over you, Lord, help her to find this turkey. I was like, oh my God. So I left the house, went to the market, and needless to say, I found a fresh turkey. Just crazy.
Okay.
I said, oh, my husband prayed that I would find a turkey. And look at here.
Exactly.
I done found a fresh turkey. So I bought that little fresh turkey. And as I'm walking out of the grocery store, my daughter-in-law, she calls me on the phone and she's like, Mama P, something's wrong with Poppy. I said, what do you mean something's wrong with Poppy? She's like, well, he was in the family room. He asked me to get him a bottle of water because he was thirsty. I went and got the bottle of water. I gave it to Marcel. That's my grandson. She was like, and Marcel was walking with the bottle of water to give it to Poppy, and he clutched his chest and he fell over and he's not moving. I don't think he's breathing. He's not responding. So I'm like, okay, did you call 911? Yes, I called 911. I'm like, okay. By the time I got to my house, the market wasn't that far. It's like Grand Central Station. There are paramedics everywhere. It's just bedlam. They're throwing questions. What did he have to eat? What did he like? To ask you questions. Then the same one comes and asks you, a different one comes and asks you the same question. I said, I just told her, but that's part of their protocol.
Right.
I understand it,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to peep in the family room and they're, doing, and I'm just like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And so needless to say, the one paramedic, she's like, ma'am, we're going to, take your husband and continue this at the hospital. And I was just like, is he, well, and she was like, man, we really can't say. I said, listen, that's my husband of 30 years. I need you to tell me something. Like,
Right.
seriously, I need you to tell me something. And she's like, well, ma'am, she's like, right now, he's not breathing. She was like, but we're doing everything that we can, to get him back. She was like, you can meet us at the hospital, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. So we, my youngest son comes in from school because he had a half day that day, the day before Thanksgiving. And he's like, what's happening? I was just like, I just want to explaining to him what had happened. And I looked at him and I said to him, is this how it was when I collapsed? Because the year before in 2020, I had COVID. Our whole household had COVID.
Yeah.
But I had it the worst. I was the first to get it and the last to recover.
Okay.
And my battle with COVID was horrific. So much so I had slept in days. My body was trying to adjust. I ended up having a seizure and I stopped breathing in our house. And the same floor where my husband resuscitated me, when they got me back, I was breathing, but I was unconscious. And so they took me to the hospital. Of course, my family couldn't come. They didn't know if they'd ever see me, be able to talk to me again. The same floor, the same sofa where I collapsed, stopped breathing, and my husband successfully resuscitated me, he could not be successfully resuscitated.
Yeah.
I sit with that tension every time I sit in my family room. I sit with that. And I'm reminded that there's a reason why I'm here.
Right.
So both my husband and my mom have instilled in me, and my brother, Mark Legacy, have instilled in me that why and purposefulness and intentionality is significant in life.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point now where there's a reason why I'm here. Legacy is all that I am about, leaving a legacy, not just what I'm living today, but because legacy is not simply what you leave, it's also what you live while you're still alive. And so I want to instill legacy through my children and my grandson and my future grandchildren in everything that I do. And so it was devastating 6 days after my sister for my husband to pass away. Like, we're still trying to plan my sister's funeral.
Right.
And now I have to plan my husband's funeral. I'm like, I don't even know how to deal with this. I don't even know how to think. Like, I literally married my husband right out of college. I've never lived as an independent adult because I graduated in May. I got married in August. Like, I moved right from my college apartment into the house he bought for us. Like, and I don't know what it is to live as an independent adult. And I just remember standing there looking at my children, looking at my 3 sons, and looking at my husband, who, my God, he looks so peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I say to these three young men? Where do we go from here? Like, what is our up life? Like, what do
Yeah.
we do now? Like, how do I lead so great a people? Like, what do I do? How do I do this? And I was reminded in that moment of something my husband had done many, many years before, when my oldest son was around 5 or 6, and my husband, who was a workaholic, he took off from work. So I knew it was something significant. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
taking off from work today. I'm picking, MJ up from school. And when he comes home, we need to have the talk. Now, as a boy mom, I'm thinking the talk has to do with, pubescence and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is he a little too young for that? He was like, no. He's like, he's at the perfect age. We're going to have the talk and conversation. So I didn't challenge it because I'm a girl. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so when my son came home, my husband brought him in from school. He sits him down, gets him a snack, and he was just like, son, this is not going to take long, but you and I need to have a conversation. This is probably one of the most important and significant conversations we'll ever have in life. And he was like, so I need you to pay attention to me. I need you to hear my heart when I say what I have to say. So my son's like, okay, Dad. He sits up and he's paying attention. And my husband's like, listen, he was like, there's a lot of people in the world. There's billions of people in the world. My son's like, yeah, Dad, there's a lot of people. And he was just like, of all the people in the world, God made me your father, and God made you my son.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be some reason why he put us together.
Yeah.
He was like, let's honor that. He was like, now, I've never been a dad before, and you've never been a son before. He was like, but I am just so happy and so honored and so glad to be your dad. And I hope you're honored and glad that you're my son.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, Dad, I am. And he's like, okay. He was like, but we're both doing something we've never done before. He was like, and because of that, some things we're going to do really well. It's just going to naturally flow, and we're going to do it really well.
Mm-hmm.
But other things, son, we're just going to mess up.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get it right. He was like, but that's okay. As long as we're honest with each other, as long as we talk through things, we don't hide things, as long as we work together and give each other grace and space, grace to do something we've never done and space to work it out, we're going to be okay. Right. And he's like, so I'm asking you as your dad to give me grace and space. And I want you to ask me to give you grace and space. He was like, can we do that? And my son's like, yeah, Dad, yeah. So they hugged, they did a little fist bump, and that was the end of the conversation. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But I was confused because we didn't talk about body parts or fluids or anything like that. I was confused. Yeah. And so I said to my husband, I said, wow, that was really nice. That was very beautiful. I said, but that wasn't quite the talk I thought you were going to have. He's like, oh, what kind of talk did you think I was going to? I said, well, I thought you were going to.
Yeah, the birds and the bees. Yeah.
No, he's like, later, he's like, when he's a teenager. I was like, okay. So it was beautiful. So needless to say, there's 8 years between my first and second son. So then when my second son came along, at this point now, my oldest son is 13. We had already had that other talk. Mm-hmm. And now it's time for my husband to introduce this grace and space conversation to my second son, because he wasn't officially bridge at that point. And so I'm like, okay, that was really cute 8 years ago. Wow. How you gonna make this stick, right? So my husband started with my second son, and the whole thing, all the billions of people on the earth, and I've never, you've never been a son before. I've never fathered 2 sons. I was like, okay, there's a point. You're doing good, honey. And then he went to my oldest son, and he was just like, you've never been a big brother, and so he gave everybody their roles and their responsibility, had the whole conversation, grace and space, fist bumps, hugs, high fives. Beautiful. Fast forward now to my third son, there's another 5 years.
Yeah. And
so now at this point, my oldest son is like 19. The baby boy is like 6. And, my bridge son, because at that point we started calling him the bridge. Yeah. He's like, 11. And so we're having this conversation. My husband starts with the youngest. You've never been a son before. I've never fathered 3, and he went to my bridge son. That's when we officially named him the bridge. Mm-hmm. You've never been a big brother, but you also have the responsibility of being a little brother too. But you're a bridge, you're a connector
Yeah.
of people and places and things. And it's crazy because my bridge son is 25 years old and he is a connector in every place and space he goes amongst his friend groups at work. Like, he literally lives out the bridge. Like, that's, see this little bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
that's one of the tats I got. It's the
okay.
bridge. All my kids. So there's my youngest son with the microphone, and there's my oldest son. That's the lion. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
And because the guy kind of messed up a little bit on the spacing, I got a little dinosaur for my grandson, and he's so
Oh,
excited. He was like, I'm on the wrist, Grammy. I'm like, yeah, you are, baby. You are. You in there. You in there. So, purposeful. Like, I
exactly.
have tats, but they all mean something.
Yep.
I have a why. I have a
Yes.
reason. I'm not just painting and inking my body randomly. And I'm sure
Yeah.
other people that have tattoos, like, yeah, like, there's a reason if
Yeah.
we only listen to their stories, you know? And so needless to say, you know, my husband's like, okay, you're the bridge son. And then he went to my oldest son, who at the time was 19 and he was about to go into the military. He was like, you're junior dad.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm not here, when I'm not in this house, you're the fatherhood in this house. You have a responsibility to your younger brothers,
Yeah.
you know? And so it was just such a beautiful thing. And so literally, even though I sat through all three of those conversations were never spoken again
Yeah.
with any of my sons. But when I was standing in that hospital and I was looking at my three sons and I was looking at my husband, those conversations just bubbled right back up.
Yeah.
And so I started talking to my sons. I said, hey guys, listen. I said, I can't say that I know how we're going to get through this. I don't know the details of it, but I can say with all assurity that we are going to get through this. We're doing
Right.
something that we've never done before. I've never been an independent adult. You've never lived a life without your father. And before I could finish talking, they started chiming in. Yeah, mom, we're going to do some things right. And then we're going to do some things. It was
Yeah.
like everybody remembered the conversation. And we looked at my husband like, bruh, you did something many years ago. You seeded for us for this day.
Yeah.
You established, because grace and space is part of my life mantra now.
Yeah.
Every day I'm doing something that I've never done before. And something, you know, I got to give myself grace and space in this moment. I've got to be kind to
Yeah.
myself. I've got to extend that kindness to others because I don't know what they're going through. It's a
Right.
new day for them as well. They're doing something that they've never done before. Yeah, I've driven to work before, but I've never driven to work on this day. You
Right.
know, it's all different. I can't make any assumptions about any of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all new. It's all an opportunity. It's all special and unique and should
Yeah.
be revered and honored for what it is, right?
Definitely.
And so that has definitely become a mantra for our family, to give each other grace, to give each other space. And, you know, I had to reconcile not having my husband anymore. Like, and I'm still reconciling that. It'll
Yeah.
be 4 years in November. But I'm definitely not the person that I was when he passed away 4 years ago. I'm definitely a different person. But I'm a better person
Yeah.
because I had him in my life and I carry my husband forward. And in fact, I continue to give a little wink to him. So I decided after my husband passed, I needed to, I just needed to express myself and I just needed to emote. And so I fell to writing. And my husband's name was Martin. And so every Monday, or usually on Sunday nights, usually I would just sit down and just kind of write, a little story. Because quite honestly, you've heard a lot of my story. My
Mm-hmm.
husband and I have some very interesting stories. I need to probably contact Lifetime because I got some serious stuff, like our whole dating, like it's a proposal. There's a lot to our
Yeah.
story. And so I just decided to write this thing on social media, on my public socials, like Martin Mondays. And I just would write a little story, how we met, how we did, whatever. And so every week I would write a little Martin Monday segment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just my little random thing, but it's starting taking on its own thing. Like
Yeah.
people would be looking for it on Monday mornings, like at 6:00
Yeah.
in the morning. Like I got people text me, "Are you doing Martin Monday today?" I'm like, it's 6:00 in the morning. Do you realize you texting me? Like,
Right. Give me a moment. Yeah.
It'll be out. So then I decided to make a little service level agreement with my little friends and family that it will be on my page no later than 6 a.m. and you can get your little Martin Mondays, right?
Yeah.
So probably like by the second or third month in, I was like, I think this is a book.
Mm.
This is a book. So I started preparing myself to write the book, and I started trying to give it more of a chronological feel, and more like as I'm writing from week to week. And so I decided for my husband's birthday in 2022. 2023. Sorry, he was turning 61 or would have turned 61. I released the first solo book that I've ever written. It's called Intentional Intimacy, Lessons in Life, Love, and Relationships. And it has 61 just little anecdotal stories about our life, about our relationship. But it ultimately, even though it's about Martin and Paula, it's really about you. And so
Yeah.
each entry ends with, so what is the lesson here? So we can bring it home to you,
Yeah.
right? And so how do you now, what lessons can you glean from our story, and how can you apply them, to your life? And so I did that. And then I just kind of, after the book was, out, I would, people were like, hey, I want your book. Oh, okay. And here recently, I was feeling this strong, because people were asking, where's Martin Mondays? Are you going to bring that? I'm like, no, that was for them,
Yeah.
but I felt this strong umption to bring it back. And so in August the 3rd is my wedding anniversary. I decided to start Martin Mondays again.
Awesome.
And I put it on my YouTube channel. And every Monday at 1:23 p.m., I have a show or little, segment to share of Martin Mondays. Now, again, the why, the purpose, the intentionality.
Right.
My husband's birthday is January 23rd. So
Okay.
at 23 on every Monday, I release a segment of Martin Mondays. And it's just like a wink to his life and our life together. And I'm not gonna lie. What is this? It's been a month or so
Mhm.
into it. I'm just like, girl, why you do that to
Yeah.
yourself? Like, you got all this stuff going on. Like, why did you take that on? Like, okay, maybe we'll just fizzle this out at the end of the year and do whatever. And so one day, my college student, he hadn't gone back to school yet. He was like, Mom, Martin Mondays is, it's time for Martin Mondays. And I was just like, yeah, I know. And he's like, well, let's watch it. And so he and I decided to watch the Martin Monday segment together. I was like, I know what it says. He's like, well, I don't. Let's watch it.
Yeah.
So we're in the family room and we're watching the Martin Monday segment. And my grandson comes in and he's like, Grammy, you're on TV. Like, he was like super excited that
Yeah.
Grammy was on TV. I'm like, yeah, I know. So then he starts watching it and he's like, you're talking about Poppy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about Poppy. And he's like, oh my God, Grammy, you're talking about Poppy. And that's when it hit me. I'm not doing this for right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for my grandson and his children and their children, because YouTube ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
This legacy in motion. And yeah, when Grammy is no longer here, then Marcellus can tell the rest of them, oh yeah, he can, because even though my grandson was 3 years old, he remembers. He was like, Grammy, they were he said, those people worked so hard to try to save Poppy. He remembers. It
Yeah.
reminds me of myself when my brother passed, but I was
Yeah.
15. And for him to be 3 and remember the level of detail
Yeah.
is almost a little, yeah. But he's like, I remember Poppy, and he'll tell me stories about my husband and different things like that. And I was just like, this is why I'm doing this. It's
Your
not,
why.
yeah, those of us that are here now get a little something, something out of
Yeah.
it. That's great. But the real gravy, baby, it hasn't even been born yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're given the legacy, you're given the why, you're giving history, right? So this is history in the making, in the present and
Yes,
in the past, right? And I love
yes,
that. I love that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Paula, tell us. I'll ask you this. Tell us, who are you? Who are you, Paula?
Who am I? Who am I? Um, I think that I think I'm a legacy builder. I think I am a woman who speaks with weight, who speaks with warmth, um, who speaks with weight, warmth, yeah, and legacy. I think that I am one who is called to help people to reframe and to look at things differently, because I used to think I was weird. Maybe I am. Maybe I am still weird. But I have this way of seeing things differently than most.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be bothered by it. And I used to think that there was something wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with anyone else. It's just that we all have different perspectives. And I have this way of reframing grief, of reframing difficulties and circumstances. And no, I'm not all pie in the sky and ooh, it's so wonderful. No, because I hurt, I ache, and I have pain. And to be perfectly honest, I have never been this in tune with my emotions than I am now, because I believe that grief and what I've encountered have caused me to deal with emotions that I oftentimes suppress under the guise of being strong, under the guise of, not being weak and, being able to do things. But no, when I am at my weakest, that is when his strength is made perfect in my weakness. And so I realized, because I had a little anger towards God. Like I thought when you told me grief stories that we were going to go into the historical archives, because I got good archives. I didn't think we were current events, sir. Like I didn't think
we were creating new events, right?
Right. Like we didn't need to be current events, But I realized that yet again, like I've been saying, Romans 8:28, it all works together, and so I believe that my role, my responsibility is to shine light and to help people to reframe. I do know that my purpose in life is to tag. I love acronyms. And so I'm always looking to tag. T for teach, A for administer. I have a very strong administrative gift, and G for give. And so just like I don't close my eyes at night unless I've made sure that I've learned something, I also go over my day each night and did I fulfill my purpose today? Did I teach somebody something? Did I administer something? Did I give something today? A smile, a compliment, like whatever. And I feel that I can close my eyes safely when I believe that I have fulfilled my purpose. Because Miles Monroe, he always said that the most valuable property in the world is the cemetery, because there is so much untapped and unused potential. And I am on a mission to die empty. Granted, I don't want to die. Lord delay his coming. And I say 99, but my kids are like, Mom, just say 100. Because at 99, when I turn 99, I probably should say, well, let's see, 99. Yeah, I picked 99 because that would be after my grandson's birthday. So my grandson, he'll turn 50 in September. And I'm like, okay, at that point, I can go because I want to dance. I want to dance. I love to dance. I want to dance with my grandson on his 50th birthday. And I feel like once I do that, I don't need to do nothing else. Like, my kids, my grandkids, I will have met so many different people. Grammy P would have given, I don't think I have anything left to give, guys. So I'm like,
I'm tapped out.
I'm all tapped out, but I'm a tap dance. I'm like, I got to be healthy. That Wonderland is coming into play. I got to have my musical faculties, because I really want to celebrate, them. And, I want to be here. And especially because I don't want them to have to live this early without another parent, So it's like, I want to take care of myself. And I want to constantly reframe, because I'm releasing a book in November. It's an anthology. I never thought I would do an anthology, but I am. I have 12 authors that are going to share their story on this anthology that's entitled "The Gift in Grief."
Okay.
And it's a misnomer in some regard, because people are like, "What do you mean a gift? There's nothing that's a gift." And that's part of my reframing ability,
Right.
because no, there is a gift in grief. If
Yeah.
we are quieting ourselves enough, if we are really looking introspectively at it, there are gifts that are made available to us in grief if we will embrace them and unwrap them. And
Yes.
so the acronym in me, G is for growth and for gratitude. I is for intentionality and introspection. F is for forward thinking and for focus. And T is for tenacity and transformation.
Yeah.
And I've asked each of my authors, I want them to write their grief story, whatever that is,
Yeah.
human loss, personal loss, write it to the best of your ability. But then when you're finished, what gift do you see that's in your story? And I want to encourage people to do that, because I can't imagine. I look back at the girl, and all I went through as a child. I went back and I reflect over my journals where I never wanted to be married, where I
Yeah.
never wanted to have children. And I look now and I cannot imagine my life had I not had a Martin Hollis, and if I did not have my Three Stooges, my Manny Moe and Jack, if I didn't
Right.
have I can't imagine. And so it's like, we think, we make what's the saying? We make plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
But I think he's eating popcorn sometimes when he looks at my life. Like,
Yeah.
you eating pop up there with this one, bro, because
Yeah.
this is hysterical. But yeah, I can't imagine my life without those guys, any
This
of
is
them. So
awesome. Thank you
yeah,
so much, Paula. You have given us so much information and just um, a story that just unfolds in a beautiful way. It's really a bittersweet story, right?
yeah,
But the way
it
that it
is.
unfolds and what you have come into within yourself is is um, is really the epitome of ashes turning into beauty, right?
Yes,
And what
yes,
you've done to really know how to utilize this, how to make tools out of your pain, how to
yes.
gift your services, right? And so all of these
Yep,
things that you have experienced, you are giving back, and you've learned how to give back to yourself. And
absolutely.
I think that even with that being said, the support that you had, the parents that you had, the love that you
Mhm.
had, all of these things that surrounded you, it didn't. Your identity was so much attached to all of this, but it wasn't. It wasn't in a bad way. Some people learn
Right,
things about their identity that they're just like, I don't. I don't like this. I don't want this. I want to strip this away from me. But for you,
right.
I intentionally didn't ask you that question about identity because you have such a positive identity, right? A
Mhm.
positive identity in your parents, a positive identity in the love and the support in your husband and all these things, where
Yes,
at this point, yeah, you wish that things would have kind of went a little differently, but it's like
absolutely.
I wouldn't have rather had it any other way, right?
Mm-mm, no,
So
and I mean,
love it.
none of it was perfect. I mean, my husband was a wonderful man. It's funny now, I joke and kid. Like, I have this necklace here. When I took my birthday trip this year to Dubai, I got this made. So when my husband and I got married, he proclaimed himself as my captain. He's like, we embark on a journey that only the two of us can take, but if you
Yeah,
let me be your captain, I'll guide you through. Girl, I was crying and boo-hooing at the altar. And so he named himself captain, and he was a captain for our family.
yeah,
Like, he really did navigate and lead us through life's difficulties. And so I wanted to get this made, because this says captain in
yeah.
Arabic.
Hmm.
And so I was telling his family, his siblings, that I had gotten this made and everything. I said, yeah, I might as well. If he was a pain around my neck in life, he might as well be a pain in my neck
I love
in
it.
death. I'm just like, I keep him near me. So
Yeah, I love it. Well, Paula, I know that you have your book. I know that
Yeah.
you have some links that you've sent to me, all of your social handles, YouTube channel,
Yes.
because we want people to be able to get in touch with you for whatever
I
they
would love
need that you service, that you
that.
provide services in. And so everything that Paula has available and the ways to get in touch with her for whatever it is that you need that she can do, it will be under her bio in the information under the podcast. Okay.
Yay.
So Paula, I want to thank you so much for coming into the shadow box and just spending this time with us, trusting me in the process and telling us all your story, right? It's been such a pleasure talking to you. Such
Absolutely.
a pleasure.
And I wish you well. What you're doing is a beautiful thing. Keep shining light in the shadows, right? That is so
Definitely.
necessary. And I wish you continued success with your broadcast and continued healing, and as you continue to heal, may you this process help others to heal as well. So God bless you,
Definitely.
sis.
I receive it. For everyone else, thank you so much for coming into the shadow box and spending this time with us. Until next time, namaste.